So everything's going great, everyone. We have many new partners, Youth for Nature, the Center for Biological Diversity, and the Break Free from Plastic Coalition, 50 by 40 Coalition. We have good linkages, really getting stronger with particularly U.S. Climate Action Network, which I have some exciting news about. The Green New Deal Network, Climate Action Campaign. And so the hope and play is to try to come up with a set of top 10 demands, and maybe from each of those groups, and then we could figure out where the similarities are, overlap. I might as well go ahead and say that U.S. Climate Action Network is, just of last night, excited about doing an adopted district effort. So this is sort of huge because the capacity and reach to hundreds of organizations and established relationships in a coalition infrastructure, and it's really very, very exciting. And so it's preliminary, but we're very excited about the idea. And so we're going to keep talking about that. On the call today, we're going to have a climate bill package update from Art Matsusov. We're going to have a song from the Art team led by Annie Ness. Real quickly on the policy sectors, which met on last Saturday, those are going strong. So the idea is for March to have a full court press. And really, we're going to digest fast. We're going to collect missing policies and details. And we're going to engage in a lot of outreach to find the partners on each topic. So that's full court press in March. And remember, we're looking for details on how to build what needs to be built and who's responsible for building it. On two sectors, we need some help on buildings and just transition. So if anyone's interested in those, please put it in the chat that you would like to help with the buildings or the just transition sector. And then if you haven't met Michelle Brandt yet, she's joining the team full force. And she's going to play a very key role in liaisoning with all the policy sectors, sort of like I'm doing with electricity and a couple others. She's going to be doing with a lot of them, maybe all of them. And so, Michelle, I don't know what's being shown on the screen, but Greg, if you could show Michelle and she could say hi or wave, everybody could see her. You're going to be getting to know her and hear a lot more from her on your individual meetings, which she'll be attending. On that point, just make sure you get all your individual policy sector meetings scheduled and put those dates and links to those meetings in the team's spreadsheet. Another announcement, marketing team is getting good and making strong connections to different agencies and now working on a symposium and a hackathon. So more on that later. Website updates are coming soon. They should be here already, but we're going to work on that, I promise. There's a faith team meeting on Friday, I believe at 3:30. That's focused on the adopted district, organizing and getting the faith community, to organize within and among those groups. At 1 p.m. on today's call, we have Felice Stadler of Environmental Defense Fund. She's going to give a movement update and then go over that letter, that financial budget sign-on letter that's been in several emails lately. She's going to delve deeply into that. And again, from that, we're hoping for the top 10 list from all these various, sort of coalition policy letters that are going to the administration. And so the most important thing is that today we start a major push for the adopted district in March and April. And so waking up this morning, and well, last night it started, but this morning to that confirmation from U.S. CAN folks that they were very interested in the idea of creating a parallel adopted district and working with all their members on that. This is huge. This is huge. And so it's also going to take a little stress off of us. But for our efforts, because, we got to keep moving, it's building this ground game, and adopting districts is really the most important thing that we all need to do. You're going to have an update from this on Brenna in a minute. I'm just going to give a little bit of, take away some of their thunder by telling you we have 77 districts in 26 states adopted, and 4 states with leads, and they're going to go over all of that and our goals. But the reason I'm sort of stealing the headlines is because I'm afraid I might lose you at some point. And I just want to really emphasize how important this is. Everything happens in Congress, everything. And so there's no more important thing. And we don't have the power that big oil and big ag and big pharma have. We don't have the lobbyists. I can assure you those organizations are not doing sign-on letters. They have this system locked up. So we have to find the only way our path is to power, and that is by organizing within their districts, within our districts, among community groups, and we have to dig deep into this. Like, so we'll have more specific tasks as we get into this conversation later today, but it's time for us to really come up with innovative and interesting ideas of how we're going to reach existing community groups, the PTA, the card club, the knitting club, the book club, whatever those systems of community organizing and coming together are. We need to figure out who those people are and reach out to them. And so the idea is that we're having not only legislative meetings in April, which is the big goal. Lots of people are focused on April. Green New Deal is focused on, that network is focused on a March action. But nevertheless, for us, it will be like two focuses. One is organizing the community, within the community, and finding those community leaders with voices and friends, and bringing them into this conversation very actively. Sitting down with your teams and making that list, doing that outreach, having those conversations, all that takes a long time. It takes weeks and weeks and weeks. And so if we're hoping to, I think we spend March doing that. And then by April, we might be in a place to either have more formal community meetings within your districts and have legislative meetings. But I'm more personally interested in, hold on one second. I'm more personally interested in the idea of building our district teams than in hurrying along to legislative meetings. But it all sort of depends on where you are in this process. I'm gonna get that back. So I think that's most of the things on my list. My agenda just went down. Oh, I know one other thing that's on the list is the filibuster. We've joined several coalitions around that, and there are various initiatives trying to get rid of the filibuster. So we'll go into full swing. That's sort of critical to, being able to pass legislation without a huge margin and all sorts of Republicans. Before we have some questions that we need help answering in various sectors and just generally. So these are for everybody to put your thinking caps on. What are the detailed plans? What is the detailed plans for building 100% renewable? What are the detailed plans of what that looks like? Where it's going to go? How many solar farms? How many wind farms? Where are they going? Who's responsible to build them? There's a big difference between putting mandates in place, if we even get mandates, which is another conversation I'll mention in a minute. And then that's nice to have mandates, and then everybody comes back and say, well, we couldn't fulfill the mandates. What are you going to do to us? So there needs to be a more detailed plan of who's responsible to build what. So we're looking for that information. I know there's some conversation about some building plans on public land for renewables. So we need more information on that. You get the idea. There should be a 2-pager that says we need 5,000 solar farms and 10,000 wind farms and whatever the numbers are. The second question we need help analyzing is related to getting clean energy standards or renewable energy standards into the budget reconciliation process that everybody's now decided is the holy grail and the only hope. And using the tax code to do that. So we would, you would have a provision that says you can double your deductions for all your new clean energy investments. And then if you don't meet greenhouse gas reduction targets, we're going to start to eliminate your deductions and they could go down to 0. So we want to figure out if that's legal and that would work in this approach. And then the last question we have is what Republican Senate districts should we focus on? We have a list growing, and you'll hear some of those in the adopted district update, and we're asking around. But I really sort of want to hear y'all's thoughts on it. And you can put this in the chat any information in respect to any of these things I'm asking, feel free to chat about them. And so the Republican districts I'm thinking about are where they have the worst storms, where they're suffering the most immediate impacts from climate crisis. And then, there's always the political test of who's more amenable to these things. The Sabin Center has told us that everyone who voted for impeachment is a target, and plus Manchin. But I'm not sure that there's a corollary there. Maybe it just shows a certain degree of independence, but nevertheless, you get the idea. We got to figure out who those targets are, and that'll give us a little bit of a focus, and it'll be more fun. And frankly, those Republicans and a few Democrats are the ultimate target, because if we don't take away the filibuster, and even if we do, we need Republican support, I think. So that's it. And then now that's all the updates. And first, we have a guest now from the international trade arena, Arthur Stamulos from Citizens Trade Campaign. Welcome, Arthur. I hope you're with us. It's excited to hear about your coalition and fascinating ways that you explained to me and Rachel Matcliffe. And thank you, Rachel Matcliffe, for doing all this outreach and bringing this into the fold. But you had some fascinating lists of how we could actually do things in national legislation to affect the international trade agreement. And so with that, I'll stop yapping and welcome Arthur to tell us all about your work and these ideas and how we can, hopefully all work together.
Yeah, thank you for the opportunity to speak with you today. So again, my name is Arthur Stamulos. I am the Executive Director of Citizens Trade Campaign, which is the National Coalition of Labor, Environmental, Family Farm, Faith and Consumer organizations that works together to improve U.S. trade policy. How we operate our national board of legislative directors from the different groups coordinates on policy direction, on lobbying on the Hill, things like that. And then we also support state-based affiliate coalitions in a handful of states across the country. And so I'm excited to speak with you today because, until recently, the intersection between trade policy and climate solutions was something that we talked about, but that we didn't really have much immediate hope of making any progress on. The Trump administration was obviously awful on the issue. But even before that, the Obama administration literally refused to allow the words climate change to be in any of the trade agreements that it worked on. And so up until now, it's been hard going. But today we have a president who says he sees trade policy as an avenue for making climate progress. The vice president has said the same. And so has the chair of the House Trade Subcommittee, Earl Blumenauer, the Senate Trade Subcommittee, Ron Wyden, both from Oregon. And so it's important moving into 2021 and the years to come, that environmentalists have a basic understanding of the role that trade policy is playing right now in exacerbating the climate crisis, as well as some of the main ways that trade policy should be changed to prioritize climate solutions. And so, allow me to just spend a few minutes talking about how trade agreements have thus far been an impediment to climate solutions. At their core, trade agreements are about removing barriers to goods traded across borders. Modern trade agreements actually cover far, far more than that. But top level, right in the name, the basic gist of free trade agreements is free trade. Fossil fuels like oil, coal, gas, they're included in that. So too are carbon intensive products, from aluminum and concrete to single-use plastics to consumer electronics. These are all goods that are obviously traded across borders. And so when a government takes action to limit the movement of these types of products across borders, whether directly through an export or import ban or a quota or a new tariff, or indirectly by, say, limiting fracking or denying permit for an export terminal, any of those actions that can limit trade in fossil fuels or that limit trade in other carbon intensive products, that can be considered a violation of trade agreement rules. And the thing that makes trade agreements somewhat unique in the world of international relations is that they have enforcement mechanisms built directly into them, and those enforcement mechanisms have real teeth. So, if a country, particularly a powerful country like the United States, violates most types of international agreements, the worst we usually face is a strongly worded letter criticizing our behavior. I'm being a little tongue-in-cheek here, but not entirely. Most treaties rely on the goodwill of the parties involved. But when it comes to modern trade agreements, there are actually predetermined adjudication processes for settling disputes, and countries can face serious economic penalties if they're found in violation. And I don't want to get too far into the weeds, but the two major types of enforcement actions are what are called state-to-state dispute settlement and investor-to-state dispute settlement. Pretty much all trade pacts these days have some process for state-to-state dispute settlement, meaning that one government can challenge the policies of another government as restricting trade in some way. Under these types of processes at the World Trade Organization, the United States has already lost cases, about programs under the Clean Air Act, the Endangered Species Act, the Marine Mammal Protection Act. Other areas not related to the environment include, country of origin labeling for meat products, laws related to internet gambling, all cases brought against the US by foreign governments. And then some free trade agreements actually go beyond state-to-state dispute settlement and allow individual corporations to challenge the laws, the regulations, the court decisions of a country as a trade violation. One example of this recently is when Quebec issued a moratorium on fracking under the St. Lawrence River. A Texas-based company involved in fracking, launched a $250 million suit against Canada under NAFTA, the North America Free Trade Agreement, saying that the moratorium violated its trade agreement rights. Another example is when President Obama refused to issue the final permits for the Keystone XL pipeline at the end of his presidency. The firm behind that project, TransCanada, launched a $15 billion suit against the US under NAFTA, seeking damages not just for the 3-point-something billion it said it had already invested in the project, but also for over $10 billion in additional compensation for the company's lost expectation of future profits. And TransCanada only dropped that suit when Donald Trump was elected, and both issued the permits that the company needed to move forward with the pipeline, but also dropped requirements that the company use American-made pipe. Now that President Obama has removed the permits again, TransCanada is now widely expected to refile its suit. And so, I don't really expect the Biden administration to reverse its decision and grant the company permits just because it loses a $15 billion trade suit, or even a 20 billion or 30 billion or however large it ends up being now this time around. But if you think for a second about the precedent here, if one of climate activists' goals is to keep fossil fuels in the ground or to otherwise restrict climate pollution in some big way, and taxpayers not only in the US, but in countries the world over, are required to compensate companies not only for the money they've already spent on fossil fuel development, but also for the money that they might have made had they been allowed to continue polluting indefinitely, obviously that's not feasible. I doubt the United States could afford that. Certainly developing countries could not afford that. It would make, meaningful climate action virtually impossible. And so this is a real problem that we need to change. And unfortunately, it's not just the the anti-pollution environmental measures that are threatened by these trade deals. It's also pro-renewable policies. In 2019, the WTO ruled against solar panel incentives that were put in place by the states of California, Connecticut, Delaware, Massachusetts, Michigan, Minnesota, Montana, and Washington. Right? These programs supposedly gave too much of an incentive for people to use US solar panels, and the WTO ruled against it. And that was a case brought against the US by the Indian government in retaliation for an earlier case brought by the US against India's use of solar panel incentives. And so we all know developing a sustainable renewable energy system in the US and beyond is going to require massive public investment. We can't sit around waiting for the quote unquote free market to make changes for us. Climate solutions are absolutely going to require government intervention. And that type of government intervention in the economy is often a direct violation of what free trade deals are all about. And so moving towards solutions, the Sierra Club has worked with other environmental organizations, written a very detailed discussion paper on the types of changes that are needed to transform US trade policy into a tool for climate solutions rather than, remaining as an impediment. I'm going to try to drop a link in the chat to that paper as soon as I finished speaking. But to summarize, there are 4 key points really quickly. First, trade agreements need strong climate standards with swift and certain enforcement mechanisms. Instead of just using the enforcement mechanisms in trade deals to enforce things like Hollywood copyrights, big pharma medicine patents, the so-called investor rights of oil and gas companies, let's use these trade deals enforcement terms to enforce internationally agreed upon climate treaties. That would help get countries to meet their climate obligations much more quickly. Second, very much related to that, our trade deals should also include strong labor standards and other human rights standards. Protecting worker rights, raising wages around the globe, beyond being the right thing to do in general, will also help us shift away from short life cycle manufactured goods much more quickly. If companies can no longer get away with paying workers sweatshop wages, they'll have much more of an incentive for more easily upgradable cell phones and computers and gaming systems and other consumer electronics to be developed. They will figure out ways to make money without requiring customers to buy a new hunk of plastic and rare earth metals every few years. If we take away, that ability to subsidize those types of products through the use of sweatshop labor. Third, we also need a language in our trade deals that makes clear, hey, whatever environmental, labor standards, other standards are adopted internationally, these are floors rather than ceilings. Meaning that, governments at both the national and the local level need to meet these international standards as a minimum. They can't go below them. But governments are free to enact, much stronger standards for their own countries, for their own communities, if they choose to do so. And those stronger standards cannot be attacked through trade agreements any longer. And fortunately, the Biden administration, President Biden, has said he doesn't want investor-state dispute settlement and trade agreements moving forward. We should hold them to that, but we still need to address this issue of government-to-government challenges as well. And finally, trade agreements should allow countries to explicitly tax the imports of carbon-heavy products, as well as imports from countries with weak climate regulations. That would do a lot of things, including disincentivizing the use of dirty products, and potentially even raising more money for climate projects that could offset the use of certain products while they're being phased out. And so I unfortunately do not have a bill that I can point you towards right now and say, support this legislation because it does all these 4 things and more. But, as you're working on comprehensive climate solutions, I strongly encourage you to include trade reform as part of that package. 2 of the members of Congress who especially need to hear from groups on this are the ones I mentioned before, Representative Blumenauer and Senator Wyden, given their roles chairing the subcommittees of jurisdiction. From there, Ways and Means Chair Richard Neal is always a key player in the trade sphere. Basically anyone on Ways and Means or in House leadership is really key on this issue. And then in the Biden administration itself, the new appointee is U.S. Trade Representative Catherine Tai, has her confirmation hearing tomorrow. She's generally seen as an ally, but she's going to face a lot of pressure from, both all the usual corporate lobby groups that we're up against in trade fights, but also, frankly, some of the more business as usual, corporate friendly elements of the administration. And so, the more bottom-up demand we can help generate for climate-friendly trade policy, the further we are going to get. And I think there is a real chance of harvesting some strong gains under this administration. Lastly, in terms of on-the-ground organizing, if you're part of groups working on the West Coast, I'd love to connect you with organizers for the Washington Fair Trade Coalition, the Oregon Fair Trade Campaign, or the California Trade Justice Coalition. Those are states where we have a number of Democrats who are traditionally, okay on climate and not okay on trade policy. So a lot of education and outreach is still needed on the West Coast. But we also have, coalitions in Texas and New York and elsewhere that I can plug you into if that's where you're based. I mean, obviously, this is a global issue. It's going to require work everywhere to make a real difference on the timeline that we need to make a real difference in. And so I think I will stop here. And if there's still time, I'm happy to open it to questions.
I wanted to ask a quick question and make a little comment as well. First, to say thank you so much. That was such a beautiful presentation, very comprehensive. And also to say that there is something coming down the pike soon, which our coalition can support, which will affect trade deals.
Oh, there we are. I'm sorry, I didn't know your name. Okay, thank you.
It's Ethel Igonet. It's Ethel Igonet. And so this will very much affect important trade deals. This is the Schatz bill. It's being championed, of course, by Senator Brian Schatz from Hawaii. And one of the NGO members of our coalition, EIA, the Environmental Investigation Agency, is kind of leading the charge to push for the Schatz bill. So if you have any bandwidth to help push for the Schatz bill, we'd love to connect you to Rick Jacobson from EIA. The Schatz bill will alter trade deals, especially with countries that have deforestation for commodity agriculture. So basically like Brazil, where you have the lungs of the planet. This is a huge climate issue to save the Amazon. And the Schatz bill would end deforestation, illegal deforestation from entering American supply chains. That would cover things like beef, soy, cocoa, coffee, rubber. It would be very broad, very impactful for transforming how we are able to change what we trade and what we import and what we consume. So I think it's incredibly timely, Arthur, that you raised this, because my understanding, Rick told us, is that the Schatz bill will kind of drop in about a month's time. And so everything that you said, I think makes it even more important for this whole coalition to do a surge and a push to support that as part of what you're talking about. Of course, it doesn't cover everything you're talking about, but it will be important.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. I just added the link to the Sierra Club paper in the chat, and I'm putting my email address. If you could, I just made a typo in my email address. If people could send me, if you could send me any information about that bill, I'd appreciate it and happy to share it with our coalition partners and see, where we might be able to help out.
Hello, everybody. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay, well, I keep dropping in and out, so I apologize if I've dropped any balls here, but I heard Atel's there, so that's good. Thank you, Atel. How were we? Where were we in the process?
Arthur just finished his presentation.
Arthur just finished his presentation, and we linked this idea of trade to the upcoming support that our whole coalition can provide to a key climate legislation linchpin that would transform trade, which is the Schatz bill. And I believe, Todd, if you, please correct me, I believe Rick is slated to present to our coalition in the next coming couple meetings about what's
well, the Schatz bill has already been endorsed and is already in the bill package. So we're just waiting for that filing. That's not probably, I hear, until April, right?
Yeah, that's right. I think,
March or April.
And maybe Rick will talk to us at that time.
Sure. Wonderful. Well, I think in the interest of time, if it's okay, we're going to have to keep going. Arthur, thank you so much. We're very excited to work with you on this and to get all your specific details into the spreadsheet under the trade section, and then to coordinate with all those grassroots partners. That's very exciting. Thank you so much for being here, and we look forward to all of that.
Yeah, no, thank you, everybody. Appreciate it.
Arthur, real quickly, this is Jeff Hammerland. I'm in Portland, and I'm in Blumenauer's district. So I'll be happy to email you separately about how I might be able to help get him focused on this issue as well.
Great. No, I appreciate that. And I saw the chat sort of exploded. My email address is arthur@citizenstrade.org. Please follow up with any connections or questions. I'm happy to answer them. Take care, everybody.
And everybody, we're trying to channel these kinds of communications with our partners. So we'll channel them through through Rachel Matcliffe and our little trade sector, and hopefully we'll get a liaison from Arthur who could actually, be there more as a liaison, so we don't individually start communication threads that overwhelm him. So just be mindful of that. Let's try to, everything we're doing is to try to channel our information flow in terms of inputs and then questions, et cetera, through the policy sector team in a coordinated way.
Okay.
So you can put your questions in the team's spreadsheet in particular.
Can I ask a quick question of Arthur, Todd? Just a quick question.
All right, sure, we have a tight agenda,
Okay,
but go ahead.
When would be the next time and way that these regulations and trade deals are altered? In other words, the requirements for trade, like who makes those decisions and when is the next time, in addition to any legislation that comes up?
Yeah. So really quickly, there's legislation called Fast Track, Trade Promotion Authority, when Congress gives some of its authority over trade policy to the executive branch. Fast Track expires this summer. So at some point, not necessarily this year, but during the Biden administration, there will be a big debate over what needs to be and cannot be in future trade agreements. That will be one opportunity for us. And then, there are all sorts of efforts to push the Biden administration to use executive action to make positive changes on trade policy. And finally, the president has issued a moratorium on new trade negotiations for the moment. But as soon as that begins again, each one of those individual trade agreements will need to watch very closely to make sure that climate solutions are advanced and fossil fuel interests are not.
Thank you, Arthur. Thank you, Todd.
Thank you all. Thank you so
Thanks,
much
everyone.
again. Bye-bye. You're welcome to hang out, of course. So it's 1:37, I'm seeing. Our timeline is that at 1 o'clock, we have Felice coming. And in between then, we have a song, and Ann is going to lead. We have the Adopted District report from Brenna and Greg. Next action steps for Adopted District and the climate bill package. And then Sarah Gronum is going to talk about the New York State team. And we're going to show the map, the new map by Sarah. So that's a lot to do in 22 minutes. So let's jump into it. Ann, would you like to go ahead? And after Ann, we'll take Art out of turn on the climate bill package because I know he has to leave before 1. And then we'll go into the Adopted District planning. Go ahead, Ann.
Hi, this is the participatory part of our meeting, so you can get up and stretch or dance, or it's a very simple song. It's non-copyrighted, and so it can be our song. I'm here to represent the art committee that is doing amazing work at uniting people all over the United States right now. It's a surprise, so I can't tell you about it, but many of the people that we're uniting are from Oregon, but all the Western states. So when we have a lot of people behind our cause, it's really important, as Todd has said. So the song goes like this, and you can clap your hands. You have to be on mute when we learn this. It goes, the earth, the water, the fire, the air, return, 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 return. And I'll play you the notes. I gotta turn my piano on. The earth, the water, the fire, the air, return, 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 return. The earth, the water, the fire, the air, return, 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 return. There's 4 returns. It represents how when we take minerals from the earth, we have to realize that the earth has only so many and we can't hurt the people. The earth may go on after climate change, but we are worried about the people. So you can either clap while you sing or get up and dance, but I'll play the notes first while you guys sing. You can sing because you're on mute. You can just say the words. The earth, the water, the fire, the air, return, 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 return. The earth, the water, the fire, the air, return, 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 return. And that last note you can change when you sing it yourself at home while you're working. And the whole art team is working on things that excite people, because even if we have legislation, in the end, it involves us being so behind it the whole population of the United States, that we have to have theme songs and art to guide us. So I hope that helped. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Anne. That was lovely. I'm calling in from the woods, everybody. The river's running right by me. The sun's on me because I have to find the only spot where there's nothing. So that was particularly beautiful right now for me, and I hope everyone coming back to the earth is going to heal us in so many ways. And protecting her is going to make everything better. All right, next up, back to business. From the sublime to the mundane, as they say. Art Matusu, a dear old friend and formerly with the New York City Council, has stepped up, thank goodness, to keep track of all the bills and engage the legislative offices in Congress on, the refilings, which he's been active on, and then to help all the policy sector teams cope with the influx of new bills and that information flow. And so thank you, Art, so much. It means the world that you've decided to come into this project, and you're already doing incredible things. Please take it away with your update.
Hi, thanks so much to Todd. It's good to be here, and thanks, Anne, for the song. I've been in touch with the legislative offices of various people in Congress just to see whether and when they're planning to reintroduce the legislation that we put into the bill package for the last session of Congress. I've heard back from most of it. The thing that's coming up soonest is going to be the Climate Stewardship Act, which is the lead sponsor in the Senate is Senator Booker, and he's planning to reintroduce that in early March. Representative Neguse is planning to reintroduce the pesticide bill, the Protect American Children from Toxic Pesticides Act. And Senator Booker's office is also planning to reintroduce the Food and Agribusiness Merger Moratorium and Antitrust Review Act. Representative Khanna and Booker are both planning to reintroduce the Farm System Reform Act. Congresswoman Omar is planning to reintroduce the End Polluter Welfare Act. For those other ones, they didn't give a timeline. And it's my understanding that the fracking and plastics legislation is also going to be reintroduced, although again, I don't know about the timeline there. Ittel's kind of been collecting a lot of different other pieces of legislation from the last session that we might want to endorse if it's reintroduced. And I'm not going to go through that list because it's about 25 different bills. But it basically kind of the main categories are around farming, food waste, conservation, things like that. There are about a dozen bills there. There are a few bills on fossil fuel management and carbon tax and things like that, and carbon capture. And then there are a handful of bills on environmental justice and a just transition. So these are bills that will probably be kind of digesting as we move forward to see if we want to endorse them if they're reintroduced, which most of them probably will be. So that's all I have. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Art.
Thank you, Art. Oh, sorry, Catherine.
Thank you.
That's wonderful. Oh. Go ahead, you do the thinking, Catherine. You do it so lovely.
Okay, thank you. You too.
So one thought that came to mind, I think I lost in this conversation. Oh, I know what it was. So we may have to review how we decide to support legislation. Because last time we, had presentations on every bill by the lead groups and voted and all that jazz. And so it took months really. And now it's sort of a faster pace, I think. So we just have to think about that a little bit. could be that maybe the policy sector teams could do the initial review, and if they support it, and we all do a quick check-in, and there's nothing major problematic, then we can put it forward to everybody as a package, sort of, or we'll figure it out. There'll be some process, but we just need to streamline it. And on that note, we almost have to streamline everything. Organizing can go slow or it can go really fast. And this is a point that's been on my mind lately because folks, it's always a trade-off between process and speed. And we have such a unique moment of opportunity here, and it's really a tight window. And so if we're going to seize it, we have to act with lightning speed. And sometimes perfect organizing will get in the way of actually getting results. So that's just a little caveat there. Next up, we have Brenna and Greg, who are wonderfully teaming up on the adopted district to get everything flowing and keep track of everything and stay in touch with everyone. Please take it away, guys. And if I lose you at this point, I'll just leave it to everyone to carry on through the end. But I'll try to stay in here.
Good. Hang in there, Todd.
Yeah.
I'm holding the phone up in the air.
Okay. Well, hi everyone. I'm Greg Wagner. Brenna was going to talk about this today, but I don't think she's here. So I'll do my best to give you what our best picture of things at the moment. I'm going to screen share a few slides. All right, can people see my slides?
Yep, we see your slides. It's all good, Greg.
Hold on a second. Okay, so
Yeah, we can see it.
right there, that's better.
Yeah.
So as Todd mentioned earlier, we're making great progress. We have 74 districts represented spanning 26 states. And we have leads in 4 states: New York, Oregon, Washington, and Iowa. And as Todd mentioned, there's a lot to do in a short period of time, and hoping by April that we reach these goals. 200 districts in all 50 states, so that means we have 14 to go, and have state leads in 25 states, so that would be 21 of those to go. And also to hold legislative and community meetings in April. So the states that we already have, that we have adopted districts: California, Colorado, Connecticut, Florida, Iowa, Illinois, Massachusetts, Maryland, Michigan, Minnesota, Montana, North Carolina, New Hampshire, New Jersey, New Mexico, New York, Ohio, Oregon, Pennsylvania, Rhode Island, Tennessee, Texas, Washington, Wisconsin, Virginia, and Vermont. And March focus, trying to target particular states, and some of the states we're looking at are ones that are already experiencing large effects of climate change. And so looking for 4 more state leads in Wisconsin, Michigan, Indiana, and Ohio, and to
Can everyone who's not Greg, everyone who's not Greg, please mute yourself. Thank you.
I think that was when I'm screen sharing, I can't do the muting. So if someone else could do that, that would be great. So find districts in these targeted states: Texas, Michigan, Massachusetts, Nebraska. Looks like I was muted. Am I unmuted?
Now
Okay.
you are.
Okay. Thank you. I don't know where I was. So I was talking about the targeted states: Texas, Michigan, Massachusetts, Nebraska, Alabama, Maine, Pennsylvania, and West Virginia. So if anyone on this call is in any of these states and you're interested in adopting a district or taking the lead in your state or in your district, it would be great. Put your information in the chat. or state so in the chat. Let's see. So third focus is organizing inside districts. We're working on establishing structure for that. And so Brenna and I are working on it and trying to get things organized so that people can plug in easily and know what to do and how to be in contact with us and each other. So that's a process we're working on. Also to make a list of community groups. We know that there's people who already do this work, and so we'd like to include those folks as well. And in March, contact new local groups and meet in April. So more meetings. I know we don't want more meetings, but unfortunately we'll have more meetings. So sign up now. If you have any questions about any of this, put it in the chat. The questions we have going forward are which Republican senators to focus on, and which adopted districts are Republicans and Democrats. I mean, we're working on that as we get people to volunteer. We'll identify those districts' political alignment.
Greg, this was such a wonderful presentation and a fantastic job, but I had one tweak to suggest.
Sure.
It seems like a lot of the fate of climate legislation, no matter which bill we're talking about, whether it's energy, agriculture, trade, etc., rests in the hands of Joe Manchin, because he is the Democrat senator who is least open to climate legislation. And the other Democrat senators appear to be a safer bet. Not to say that it's not worth organizing in all the states where we have Democrat senators, but it just seems like the word on the street is that there will be a huge need for ground game in West Virginia. So I wonder if we could add into your plan one little element that would go as a sort of most urgent. It would kind of get bumped up right in between where you had number 1 and 2, where all of us on this coalition who have partners or other, if you're in Climate Reality and there's a West Virginia Climate Reality branch, if you're in 350 and there's a 350 West Virginia branch, whatever it is that you're in, if you're in a faith-based group that has churches or synagogues or whatever in West Virginia, for us all to do a very big, really heavy lift to get the West Virginia adopted district bumped up a notch to help you with that as that key linchpin, sort of that's like an urgent part of the great work that you are doing. And then of course, I think what you said about the Republicans is key, because essentially we're going to need 12 Republican senators and 26 Republican congresspeople. So we could identify which ones are the most likely to work on climate legislation, and we wouldn't necessarily kill ourselves trying to influence the people who really will never believe in climate change, like Lauren Boebert. We could focus on the moderate Republicans that are already in the climate caucus and try to build the adopted district specifically a kind of fit to purpose for those Republicans that we can change. But I think Joe Manchin might be maybe our first port of call.
Okay, thanks, Adele. Appreciate that. Catherine, you're muted.
So thank you, and Greg, thank you. How can we know the moderate Republicans to focus on?
The League of Conservation Voters has a breakdown of all their grades on environment, and that's based on their history of past voting since they've ever come into office. And so the League of Conservation Voters makes kind of a nice, easy go-to chart. And in the last 2 years, there's also been some big, interesting momentum where there's now this a Republican climate caucus. Basically, Mitt Romney has started amongst the senators, and strangely enough, even very extremist Republicans like Matt Gaetz in Florida have accepted that Florida will go underwater, and so they do now care about climate change. So we can for next call, perhaps that's something we could add to the agenda, because that's a wonderful question, Catherine. So why don't we pop that into the agenda for next time around? Fantastic question.
Thank
and
you.
Greg, if you can think of anything else that's useful, we can do that to help you, because this is such key work you're doing. Congrats again on that.
Thank you, Achal.
Looks like Rachel Macklip has a question. Do we want to entertain questions? We have 5 minutes till Felice comes.
Can we save 1 minute just to introduce Felice before she arrives? Because I think it's important for everyone to understand that there's not just climate legislation bills that can be proposed, it's also where Congress spends money. That's also counts as basically like legislative action by Congress for climate. And so Felice, I think, is going to really speak to how we can all do a big group surge to help promote this spending package being oriented towards climate. I think that's what she's going to talk with us about. So just to sort of situate how that's squarely in our mandate to help move Congress to spend the money that they're about to spend on recovery on climate and make a lot of that money go to green stuff.
So why don't you talk about it? We have a few minutes.
Should we just ask everyone to keep their questions to 20 seconds and then we'll still be able to say something about Felice before she starts?
Okay, hold on a second.
Oh, hello, everybody. I've been muted by somebody and I couldn't get unmuted for like 10 minutes. So can you hear me now?
Yeah, we can. I had to mute you, Todd, because your background noise is interrupting things. Sorry.
All right, but that was a while ago. Thank you. All right, anyway, it's going great. Everyone, thank you. We were supposed to have a map presentation by Sarah, but is Felice with us yet?
No, we still have a few minutes before 1 o'clock.
All righty. Well, Sarah, you want to take it away and show us the map?
Sure. I'm going to share my screen. That might take 1 second. Can everyone hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, great. And can you see my screen?
Yes, we can.
Great. So this is the map that I made of our network. It's maybe needs a little updating now, but we have a few things on here. The yellow dots show our network membership. So that's all the people who have signed up for our newsletter and attend our meetings and things like that. And as the user of the map, you can unclick that if you want to see what's underneath, which is the adopted districts. These are all the ones filled in green are the districts that someone has officially volunteered to adopt. And if you hover over it, you can actually see the names of the people who have adopted and their email if you want to get in contact. And then the rest of the districts are the ones that are still in need of adopting. So this map just sort of helps visualize the space that we are taking up, and obviously keeping in mind that districts such as in New York are very dense and maybe smaller. So it doesn't mean that we don't have a lot of people power already, even though a lot of the map is white. So yeah, if you have any questions, feel free to message me in the chat. I can also drop the link if people don't have it.
This is a wonderful map. And Sarah, it would be great to have the link to your map in our generic welcome email to all new members, I think.
Yeah, Todd has the link and I'll put it in the chat right now.
Catherine, we have Felice here, so we're ready.
Sorry, could you briefly, Sarah, go through the process of how to adopt a district? If somebody on the call wants to adopt a district, what would they do?
I don't know if I'm actually the best person to answer that question. I think there's a form on the website to fill out, and I can put the link for that, but maybe Greg could speak to that a little bit better.
Thank you, Sarah.
No problem.
Why don't we go to Felice for now, because she just came on and we have limited time with her.
Hi.
Hi, Felice.
Hi, nice to see you guys again. Thanks for inviting me back. Well, I'm really excited about the adopted district. So I think it's a great great opportunity to help not only forge connections between you and local lawmakers, but more importantly, forge connections within your respective communities, since there are so many people who are really eager to be part of this pushing for climate solutions. So really excited to see that come together. So Todd asked me to give a little bit of an update on what's brewing, and in particular, fill in some details on what we hope Congress is considering as it begins to put the package together that will make up what's called kind of the economic recovery package. So I think if we remember, we're going to have a relief bill that Congress is working to get in front of the president. And that relief bill is really about, is really focused on making sure that that we don't fall off an economic and societal cliff. So it's about extending unemployment and helping small businesses and helping with vaccines. And so it's really truly a relief bill. And that's going to be separate from what we anticipate will be the next order of business, and that is putting together a broad recovery package. I think I shared last time that we are in a unique place this year where we are able to advance many of our clean energy, transportation, infrastructure goals that we know are going to benefit us in terms of driving down climate emissions. It'll benefit us in terms of jumpstarting investment in U.S. manufacturing that will make sure that we get clean energy and clean transportation really into the marketplace in a real robust way. But instead of having it be about climate change and having it be a climate bill, it's really nested very much in economic recovery package. So the timing for that is the key committees are beginning to assemble specific policy proposals. And they were all in slightly different places. In some cases, they're taking legislation that was introduced last year, kind of dusting it off, retooling it, finding new co-sponsors, and we'll be introducing them. In other cases, they're actually writing some new policies. So for example, last year, our now Vice President Harris introduced a bill last year on electrifying the school bus fleet nationwide. Right now, as you might be aware, the ability for a school district to electrify their school bus fleet is very much tied to local tax base, any additional investments that might happen at the municipality or at the state level. So it doesn't take long to realize that then that benefit is not equally distributed. It's not equally shared. So this bill was intended to address that disparity. So that bill is getting retooled, and Senator Cortez Masto from Nevada, who's a great champion, is looking at pulling this particular bill plus a number of other bills that are similar in theme. So all generally around electrifying the transportation sector. We don't have all of the details yet, but this package likely will be introduced tomorrow. And this would be a particular package that we would imagine would get eventually folded into a larger infrastructure or a larger economic recovery bill for later this summer, early fall. So sometimes you're going to hear the language interchangeably. Sometimes people talk about it as economic recovery. In some cases, people talk about it as a stimulus bill. In some cases, people start talking about the infrastructure package. It's really unclear like how it's all going to move, but we do know that there is going to be a major investment made to jumpstart U.S. manufacturing and to, fingers crossed, incentivize the continued uptake of clean energy and clean transportation. So that's kind of just the current state of play. One particular opportunity that we have is highlighting some specific policies that we hope are top of mind for members of Congress as they begin to evaluate this broader economic recovery package. And earlier this week, a letter went to the leadership in the Democratic leadership in Congress. And the letter was signed by over 50 organizations from around the country. It was primarily national organizations and a few regional based organizations. I will preface by saying that the letter was not intended to be one that would garner a large volume. This was really about making sure that there's a core set of organizations that are spending a lot of time lobbying Congress and that have a lot of members could all be on the same page with respect of what we were asking Congress to do. So this letter was circulated. The letter is short, but the list of policy suggestions is quite long. So we call it kind of a policy menu. And I am going to circulate it. And I don't know, Todd, do you have that handy? That letter?
He's in the woods.
Oh, he's in the woods. Okay, well, that's nice.
Felice, we sent around your letter to everyone before the deadline that it closed, but it was very close to the deadline. So I think a lot of folks weren't able to sign it as an organization on time to meet the deadline, but you had mentioned something important that everyone could do, which I think would be wonderful, which is to take the letter, even though it's now too late to sign it on and join that group, to take the letter, make it your own, and yourself send it to senators and Congress people, particularly the moderate Republicans and Joe mentioned. But maybe you can elaborate on this and how adapting it to personalize it makes it that much more powerful. And then the senators and Congress people are much more likely to take it seriously when people have made it their own and sent it off. So I defer to you on this.
Yeah, thank you. And I did just post in the chat the PDF of the final letter. We did a press release, but EDF was not the drafter of the letter. We're just one of the organizations that signed it and circulated it. So the PDF has the letter in its entirety, including the appendix, which is the menu, policy menu. So one of the things that we wanted to propose is encourage. So you can approach this in a couple of different ways. You can take the letter whole cloth, personalize it to your particular state, district, and send it in to your delegation. So I think this is where it's most important for your members of Congress to hear from you. You can also, if you've already adopted a district, you can take the letter, you can make it on behalf of individuals within your district, and you can collect signatures from people in your community, in your district. It could include individuals, it could include civic leaders, it could include business owners. So really, you know, I would say don't feel limited. The most important thing is that members of Congress hear from people in their district or in their state that these are things that are really important. Second, I would share that when you look at the lists of policy ideas, some might really be more of interest to you than others. And so also, I want to invite you to tailor it. So if you don't want to send a letter that has a very long list of policy options, and you really want to do a letter to your congressional delegation, whether just as an individual or if you're able to gather signatures from others in your community, and you want to just focus on one, and let's say it's about clean energy, and you know the importance of clean energy in your state or in your district, you know that there's a company that's really been struggling, whatever the story is, make it personal, and then you can cut and paste, and here are some policy options that we would like you to consider as you're building, as you're thinking about putting together an economic recovery package. So yes.
Felice, can you say a little bit more about what's in the letter?
Yes, I can do that. Who was that? Todd?
That was Todd.
Todd from the woods.
Yes, I've been locked out again, so I would prefer to mute myself. If I need to mute, just ask me to do it, please.
No, that's fine. That's fine. Yep. So the letter, and I misspoke, the letter actually goes to what's called the four corners. So it's the leadership in all four corners of Congress. So the two leaders in the House and two leaders in the Senate. And the letter really reinforces the really kind of we call it the once in a generation, once in a decade opportunity we have to make major investments that will jumpstart manufacturing and jumpstart precisely the solutions that we know, the technical solutions we know are going to be critical to modernize our energy economy and make our communities safer and healthier. And so the letter includes a couple of things. One, it very clearly states a goal of wanting to make sure of getting our country on a path, getting to 100% clean electric power by 2035. So that's very specific in the letter itself. It also specifically says, make sure that the investments are putting us on a path to getting to at least 90% reduction in all greenhouse gas emissions no later than 2050. So again, aggressive goal, but those are the only ones where there's real specificity, and that's at the top of the letter. But more important, well, those are important, but equally important is as you go down on the page 3, you're going to see it's called the Climate Investment Strategy. And the groups that worked on this organized it in a number of different categories, everything from clean electric generation to pollution cleanup, to economic development, to affordable housing. So if you're an advocate and that's worked a lot on affordable housing and you're thinking about, well, what's the climate smart investment or the climate relevant investment that would apply to affordable housing, you're able to look at this document and you'll see that there's very specific policy ideas that are being presented that would pertain to advocates who are pushing for affordable housing. Same with if you're really focused on transit and smart growth policies, and you really want to dig in on that piece. Or if you want to cover the waterfront, so to speak, and literally take the whole list of policies. It's 12 pages worth, and just personalize the cover letter. You can do that as well. There's a lot of flexibility. And most important, what we wanted to do is make sure that you all saw this letter and you now know at least what the leadership in Congress has seen. The last option, which is very simple, and sorry I'm talking so much, but I'll say this last thing and then I'll be quiet and take questions. The last thing you could do that's very simple is you could literally take this letter and you can send an email to your member of Congress. I'll do mine. Dear Senator Van Hollen, he's my senator here. Dear Senator Van Hollen, I wanted to make you aware of this important letter that over 50 national environmental, conservation, and public health organizations and clean energy advocates have submitted to congressional leadership, reinforcing the once in a generation opportunity we have to invest in climate smart solutions. I want to bring your attention to this letter. It includes a very extensive list of all of the different policy options that we have before us to make this investment. And I urge you to consider this as you're working with your colleagues to put together an economic stimulus package for the president to sign, or however you want to end it. But that would also, and you just literally write an email, you attach the letter, and you send it to your member of Congress. And you can do it if you've got 2 senators and your member of Congress And you can, and that would be great. Because that would probably be I'm always a firm believer, you got to give a couple different options. That's like the least intensive, time intensive option. Just literally send an email, forward it on. You could crib what I just said, make it a lot more simple, because I kind of rambled at the end. Or if you want to kind of dig into it and push a particular policy that speaks to you, and you want to get more individuals and civic leaders in your network to sign on. And I would say what I just presented, they're not mutually exclusive. You can do actually both. So there
Hi,
are
everybody.
options.
So Felice, real quick, and if whoever's running the muting could please stop muting me by the host. I will mute myself or unmute myself. So Felice, can you just list the names, some of the groups that help compose the letter?
Yeah, well, somebody just posts, oh no. Yes, I can do that. Hold on. So it includes everyone from, it includes, I don't know, I'm trying to think of ones that everyone will know of. Sierra Club, you've heard of, National Audubon Society, National Parks Conservation Association, the Alliance of Nurses for Healthy Environments, Earth Justice, Green the Church, Hispanic Access Foundation, Western Organization of Resource Council, Climate Reality Project, Clio Institute. You can, so if you look at page 2, I know not all of you have the email in front of you, but it gives you a real sense of how expansive the representation is behind this letter. PSR, Physicians for Social Responsibility, also is on. And then of course, all of the main national environmental groups are on there too.
Hi, I was muted again somehow. So maybe this is a phone problem. Well, that's wonderful. Thank you, Felice. Now our team is going to digest the letter. I don't know if your team could do the digesting on our spreadsheet, or if we're going to do it. It would be lovely if some of the authors of the document wanted to join us in the crowdsourcing of everybody's opinions in this one policy spreadsheet, because we're hoping then to see the overlap. So we're going to do the Thrive agenda, and that bill's coming out. We're going to do VICA, Vision for Equitable Climate Action, and they're talking about a top 10 list from their document. So I'm sort of planting seeds to ask folks to see if they could come up with a top 10 list from their documents, and then we could maybe compare those, compare notes, and who knows, maybe come up with a top 20 list or something that we could all agree on. And that would be a fascinating foundation for the adopted district to have something to work with. So as with all these things, everybody, y'all feel free to run with anything you want to run with. But our strategy here is to try to unite all these various centers of activity and come up with a collective demand. So it's not just 1,000 people knocking on all the different doors with different and unsynchronized asks, but that somehow or another we coalesce around a set of asks, because it would be just easier for activists to get their minds around that, and it would also mean collective power. So, but thank you, Attell and Felice, so much for managing all this and everything you're doing. It's a delight, Felice, to be working in so closely with you, because you've really been so open about, collaborating and opening the stories up to the grassroots and looking to build these bridges so we can all work together. And I really think it's wonderful. Thank you so much.
Sure, Todd. And I'll just share, like in the document, maybe if you haven't had a chance to look at it closely, but if you look at them, in some cases, there are particular bills that have already been identified. So the good news here is that this actually does represent the collective thinking and support, not across every particular policy priority, but a large number of them. And so the good news is that there has already been a lot of legwork done so that we can present a united front to Congress right now with the biggest opportunity we have in front of us. And I will just reemphasize, it is a huge opportunity. And I don't want to say it's a sure thing. Everything hangs in a delicate balance, real delicate balance. And so we are, some days we're feeling really confident, and other days we're feeling really nervous. So, you know, the window is narrow, but the opportunity is tremendous. So I know that you're going to continue to do crowdsourcing, but I can't emphasize enough, there is a coalescence, and a coalescence around policies that are 12 pages long. I see a lot of it has been posted in the chat box. In many cases, it's particular bills. The package of electric vehicle bills is going to come out tomorrow. So be on the lookout. It's from Senator Cortez Masto. That's something very specific. A lot of groups worked on that. But this is a really big one.
Felice, thank you so much. So you hear what Felice is saying. We got to get to work fast. So we're doing March. I don't know if by the end of March is fast enough, mid-March, to really review and see if we can't come to some preliminary collective decisions. And in the meantime, let's forge ahead with all the pieces that we have. So thank you again. And with that, we just need to invite Sarah Gronum to say a few words about the New York Adopted District work. She's the state lead, along with Nancy Lawrence, I believe. And she's going to tell us how that's shaping up as sort of an example for everyone else around the country of how to get your state coordination going on at that level. And go ahead, Sarah. Sarah's from 350 Brooklyn.
She's muted.
You're still muted.
Sarah, you're muted. And Todd, I'm so sorry. I think your phone keeps automatically reverting to mute for some reason. We're just having a glitch here.
Sarah, can you unmute?
Sarah, you have to request to unmute yourself.
Okay. Let's see if we can find Sarah.
Let me try.
I'm looking for Sarah also.
There we go. Okay, great. Thank you very much. Yeah, it kept telling me I could not do it. So thank you very much.
You're with us.
No, me too. All right, I'm going to mute.
We're all having this today. Just a couple quick words about this. In New York, we've got 27 districts, congressional districts, and 18 of them have one or more people who are stepping up to adopt. And so each group.
You're speaking in a very soft voice. If you could, yeah, now it's much louder. That would be great.
Very good.
Sound quality was off. Thanks.
All right. Apologies. In New York State, we have 27 congressional districts, and we have 18 districts where at least one person and sometimes a couple people have adopted their district. And right now, the groups are working on two things. One is to secure an initial appointment with their legislators, which often means a staff member, which is fine. And the other is to reach out to groups in their community who could go with them to this visit and show the breadth of support for individual bills. As a state, what we've done to organize as a state, first of all, is to have a monthly meeting, all of us together, so we can exchange advice and build camaraderie. The second is that we have a research group at 350 Brooklyn that is taking each of these bills, which in the video that you all know are laid out, the provisions of the bills are laid out very beautifully, but the research group is looking at what does this mean in New York State, right? So that you can give persuasive information to our individual congresspeople about why they will be bringing something home to their people, their constituents, if this bill were to pass. Some of them are not relevant, but that's fine. They can talk about how it's good for us all to pass these bills. And the third thing is that for some of the people who are less comfortable with their districts and less familiar with their districts, I'm helping them by reach out to some of our statewide districts like the New York Progressive Action Coalition or Oceana, which has a lot of people who do plastics stuff in the state, to see if we can recruit some people to help them. So, you know, helping each other, camaraderie, cheering each other on. That's what we're doing. There we go.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. We're like a duet, Catherine.
Yeah.
We're going to take this show on the road. We just got to get some harmony.
Yeah. City country harmony.
I'm so grateful for everything you do, Catherine. So anyway, Catherine's kept us going in ways that y'all can't imagine when it wasn't apparent that we were going to keep going. So, all right, everybody, we're at the end of the thing. Did we forget anything on the agenda? I think not.
I think you covered all of it, Todd. That was really great. We got through so much.
What a team you all are. It's amazing. The only freak out I was having is that I was on mute. I'm sorry if you got to hear my exasperation around that. Apologies. I had like my arm in the air and then I was muted. I was like, oh no.
Well,
all right, but it went beautifully.
Oh,
We're organizing
Todd,
from
we
all
still
over the
have
world.
3 hands up. You might not be able to see them, but we have a hand up from Rachel and a hand up from Rosemary.
And you keep us going.
Okay. Well, go ahead. Then we got 3 more minutes. I guess let's hear it.
Rosemary?
Yes, I have
Okay.
Hi, I have a quick question. I've had some feedback or pushback about the fracking ban because I'm told that it doesn't provide for support to transition workers who are going to be affected. And I've been told that if it doesn't include this, it's not going to pass, which seems reasonable. You know, it seems the reality.
My recollection is that there is a just transition provision in the fracking bill. Almost everything Food and Water Watch does includes that. But I also believe that there are bills that might include this in other ways. And there's a new bill coming from that community, which is part of the 350-led Break Free from Fossil Fuels Coalition. You know, they're all starting to sound like. But anyway, there's a new bill coming. So we'll double check on the fracking bill, but I believe there's some just transition language in it.
Well, maybe it needs to be stronger because
sounds like
feedback I'm getting is that it's not going to be supported unless it's stronger. But maybe I need to push back against that person and say it does have it. And see what they say.
let's look. Well, let's look again, and we'll report back on that. So if Art's still on the call, let's take a look.
We could have a whole presentation about it to really dive into it because I think that's a great question, Rosemary. So I don't know, Todd, if you want me to help organize for a next call so we can park that important question for when we can have more time to answer it better and more fully.
Well, totally. We're going to be going deep back into the bill package as a refresher and just to get everybody rebooted on all of that before they have meetings in April for sure. So thank you, Atal. Who was the next question?
Rachel Mackloff.
Okay.
Hi, Rachel.
Hi, I basically have the same question that the lady who spoke before me posed. I think there's a flaw in the way these just transition bills are constructed. They don't provide for immediate rushing in with counseling and vocational people and getting people calmed down. Because what I've noticed is years can go by and then all of a sudden something is stopped, whether it's a fracking ban or it's a particular pipeline or God knows what. Boom. The workers there are human beings. They've got to feed their family. They have not been told about a provision in a bill or an agency that they can apply to. And it's also a press disaster for us in the climate movement. It's a disaster because the reporters talk about the poor workers. I think we—
Okay, Rachel, if I can interrupt.
Yeah.
We're going to have this conversation in depth in the Just Transition Policy Sector team. We're looking to grow that. Michelle Brand is going to help take a lead on that. The conversation so far is that we're looking for the advocacy organizations beyond the unions that care about this topic. And so is that the Association of Community Development Agencies, or, I was an economic development lawyer for many years, and there's a whole team of people who do economic development work, but I've never seen them function as association on policy. But I feel like somewhere out there, there are advocacy organizations who have the expertise of community redevelopment. And it is not easy when you're talking about a primary source of income for an entire community transitioning. This is a very complex question. There are some examples, but I don't think there are a lot. But anyway, we're going to dig into this in the just transition. And before we take the last question, I just want to ask everybody, because today was supposed to be a push for the adopted district, and I got sidetracked a little bit. So I would just love everyone who's on the call still in the chat to think, can you step up and say you will adopt your district, or if you can't adopt it, like formally, that you'll step up to help find someone to adopt your district. And so this is the moment of truth where we stand up and get this done. So please, everybody, consider this or find a friend. That's sometimes the easier way. All right, last question.
That's it, Todd.
Oh, well, look at that then. All right, everybody. Well, this was a tour de force, it felt like. Just thank you, everybody. We're going to get to work very hard and fast in March. Be ready, get ready to read and digest. We got to find the common ground so we can bring that essence forward and use that as a rallying cry for everyone to go to Congress. And this is our moment. We could not be better positioned, both as a community here, but then all the other communities are right where it's about to pop. And everybody's talking about talking together and working together. So this is that historic moment in time. And I think we're going to accomplish some amazing things together. So thank you all for being a part of it. I couldn't be more lifted up by the incredible talent and contributions of all of you. So with that, I say goodbye from the river, and we'll see you next time.
Well, time, Todd. Thank you for all you do.
My pleasure. It's costing me some years on my life, I think, but we're in it now, so there's no turning back. No turning back now, as they say.
Have a great time in the.
All right, bye.
Bye.
Bye, guys.
Thank you all. Thank you, Atal, everybody. Bye-bye.
Bye.